Good evening. Welcome to the fifth in the series of IB webinars. I'm Ruth, host of tonight's event. As we begin tonight, let's get familiar with the WebEx console. A main feature throughout the webinar would be using the chat window. There's a floating cursor, a floating icon at the center of your screen that will allow you to use the chat panel. If you are on a mobile device, it might say chat with everyone. On computer software, the WebEx software typically says all participants. Those are the things that you should select. If you choose something else, we won't all see it. If you just choose the host, it won't go to the other panelists or to the other attendees. So if you'd like to try your chat window tonight and send out a chat to all participants, chat with everyone, just a greeting from your location, you can give that a try over in the chat panel. Reminder, all participants or chat with everyone. As I said at the top of the hour, welcome to the fifth in the series of IB webinars. I'm Ruth, your host for tonight. Chat with all participants or chat with everyone if you're on a mobile device with a different sort of chat window. Throughout our event tonight, if you have difficulty with the audio, you can select the audio bubble pop-up menu and perhaps reconnect your audio. If that doesn't work, then sometimes leave the meeting and return. We'll reconnect with your audio. So again, we're looking over in the chat window, finding greetings from people around the country. Maybe see if we can maybe have some around the world here shortly. Your presenter for tonight is Dan. Daniel, are you there?
I'm here. How are you?
I'm well. I'm turning it over to you, sir.
Woohoo! All right. Hello and good evening, everyone. I love how everybody is sharing where they're from. That's so nice to see everybody pretty much from across the country joining us here tonight. So as Ruth said, this is our fifth webinar in our IB series, and I have been lucky enough to have been the host for all of them. My name is Daniel Wilkie, and I am now this is my 17th year teaching IB math, and but my first year at a new school, a new IB school, so that's been fun, kind of getting used to that. In addition to teaching IB math, I've been teaching 24 years overall, all levels of math, but I really grew to love, looks like we're having a no sound issue, but I really grew to love IB over the last 16, 17 years, and it has become a passion of mine. So I was very pleased when Texas Instruments wanted to do something with IB, and they reached out to me, and thankfully I was available to kind of help things out. So just a few things about what to expect from tonight. Tonight's going to be a little bit different. So if you have listened to any of the previous four webinars, those webinars we basically talked specifically about the topic changes. So what's new, what's different, what's been taken out, what's been added in. We did a overall view in our first webinar, and then the next three we kind of focused on topics 1, 2, and 3, and what new things they are bringing to the table. But tonight we decided, since I think some people are either in the middle of, at the end of, or maybe even just starting the internal assessment, we decided to do one of our webinars just to talk about what the new changes are for not this year, of course, but next year. So we're a little ahead of the game. So unfortunately, I don't have tons and tons and tons of examples to show you. All I have really is what I've gotten on the download through a few friends of mine from IB. And I'm also a moderator for the Math Studies IA, the math project. So I was going to share some of the grading from that. All right, Ronnie Green from Woodmont, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Sorry, that was a former teaching buddy of mine. So basically, I'm going to just kind of give you some little tidbits on, what the differences are in the criteria. I'm going to show you kind of a side-by-side view of them. And then those documents are available for you. So we'll have links for you to access all of them. And then once we get done kind of going over the criteria, I'd like to kind of show you my interpretation of the changes, because I'd like to say this right from the beginning. There's not much change with respect to the math exploration. So those people who are teaching currently IB Math SL and IB Math HL, you're already doing the math exploration. Honestly, the only difference between the new criteria and what you are currently doing is a couple words here and there. So I was actually typing up a new document last night, and really I just changed a few words here and there. So again, those people who teach SL and HL math right now, there's really not much change in the internal assessment. Now, the people who teach studies, that's where the changes are happening, because IB is doing away with the math studies project. And what you'll notice is when I put up the side-by-side view of the current criteria with next year's criteria, there are some big changes. They're just not the same. And even though IB has said that when they did a study back in 2016 where they took the old criteria and graded it on the new criteria, or the old project and graded it on the new criteria, there wasn't much difference. And this is me speaking. This is not IB speaking. I'm just not seeing that yet, because I've been taking some of the projects that I've graded through IB and graded them on the new criteria, and unfortunately, I'm not seeing that. I'm always, if they got 18s according to the old criteria, I'm only getting them in that 13 or 14 mark with respect to the new criteria. So I'm still waiting to see what they're going to show us. If they're actually going to, because I've been searching the MyIB website for those examples that show that, yes, an old project can be almost identical to the new math exploration. But I'll let you all decide. We'll talk about it a little bit today, throw up some questions. If you have them, I'll try to answer them for you, give you my feedback on them. Again, we are a year ahead of schedule right now, so really the only people who are kind of in year one of teaching the new criteria, and maybe you're starting to get your kids doing some practice papers, so this is going to be, of interest to you. For the people who are just kind of, listening to see what's going on for the next year, just kind of hold tight and we'll talk about it. And what I'd like to finish with today is just kind of showing you what I have my students do with respect to TI technology and incorporating that into their projects, their papers. Because, if you have the handheld, you can easily transfer that stuff onto your documents. And especially if you have the TI-Nspire, if you have that handheld, and then the software that comes with it, it just makes it so much nicer for the student to do their work on their computer and then transfer it over right to their document. So I'll show you a little bit of that toward the end of this. So what I'll do is, just kind of jump right in. And like I said, feel free to ask any questions, make any comments. And also, this is what I try to do for the newcomers to these webinars is, if you have had training and you have heard something that maybe, because it looks like we have about 55 people, awesome. who have joined us here tonight, and you want to share something, please put it in the chat window to all participants, because, you know, I will try to catch everything, or as much as I can. Ruth will try to catch stuff, but if you know of something, you've heard of something that might be useful with respect to the internal assessment, please share it with everybody, because one thing that makes these webinars kind of a fun thing for me is the participation from you all. So I'm getting better with this each webinar, and I love seeing the comments, and I love having people ask questions and share, because that's kind of what we're trying to do here, is take each of our own expertises and kind of share it with one another. So Ruth, can I have control of the screen now?
Yes,
Thank
it is
you. I appreciate it. All right. All right. All right, so basically, the first thing I thought I would do, I have a lot of stuff going on here. I was practicing some stuff before everybody kind of logged in here. And again, what I'd like to just talk about first is the criteria. So let me get the easy stuff out of the way. So I will kind of show the, let's see, this one is the HL. All right, so what I have up here right now, the A, okay. So what I have on the right is the old criteria for the IB Math SL Math Exploration. What I have on the left is the new criteria for the approaches and the interpretations Math Exploration. So there's really no difference between those two. So for both the SL courses, for both applications and the approaches, that's what I have kind of going on here. And what you'll notice is if we just look at criterion A, in the old, I do too. I agree with that. Sorry, I just answered that quick question there. So what you'll notice in the old criterion, you'll see that criterion A was communication, and in the new criterion, it is presentation. Okay. So there was a slight change there. Like I said, basically, when I was creating this document, again, I only had to change a few words. Okay. And if you kind of go through this, let's just look at, to get a 1 in criterion A, it says the exploration has some coherence. Well, that has changed to the exploration has some coherence or some organization. All right, so you can see how I've changed it ever so slightly with respect to that. And so there really isn't much difference at all with respect to these, with the current SL and the new SL courses for both analysis, approaches and analysis, and the applications and interpretations. And you can kind of scan through these a little bit. But what you should notice is that personal engagement, all right, we did have a 4 in the old criteria, but now that's only a 3, okay? And that was one of those, you know, when I was grading these papers, that one was a tough one for me to kind of differentiate between someone who has a 3 and a 4 when I was grading that. But so they have made some slight changes with this, but nothing over the top, nothing major with respect to the SL courses. So now what I'm going to do is get to the fun one and kind of close this one out and throw up the math studies. So here we have the old, the old math studies, all right, our good introduction, our measurements, our math processes, okay, interpretation of results, validity, all that fun stuff. Well, that has been completely redone, okay? So you'll notice that I didn't take down the SL criteria for the new courses, all right, because, again, what studies is turning into as the applications and interpretations class, they're turning over to the math exploration. So the question is, how do they compare to one another? What's going on with, with that? Well, for the first criterion, where we have presentation in the new courses, all right, what they have done is they have combined basically criterion A, which is the introduction, and they combined it with criterion S, which is your structure and communication. So they took those two and combined it into presentation. So if you're trying to figure out where do those two connect, all right, that's what they've done. They've taken criterion A and S, combined them, and made it into presentation in criterion A. So when you were talking about is it concise, is it focused? Do they explain what they're going to do right up in the beginning? So they're not looking for that statement of task anymore. They're not looking for you to check that box. They're not saying, oh, do you have a title? Do you have the statement of task? Do you have a plan? They just want you to, be concise throughout the paper. Yes, in your introduction, you need to talk about what the paper is about, but what I got the feeling with a studies paper, and this is why I'm having trouble grading the math studies project on the new criterion and trying to get the same grade, is I always felt with studies you were checking off boxes. Did they have a title? Yes. Did they have a clear statement of task? Yes. Did they list all their data? Yes. Do they explain all of their charts? Yes. So I always felt that they were just checking off boxes to get their achievement levels. And when we switch over to the exploration, it's not about checking off boxes anymore, because what the students should be doing is they should be digging a little deeper. They should be asking the tough questions, the important questions on how can they expand or how can they dig deeper into the math that they are interested in. I was just talking to students today because I'm teaching we only do a 1-year SL course for both studies and SL. And so when we convert over to the approaches and then the interpretations classes, we're still going to do 1 year. And I teach the class right before then that leads into those classes. So the discussion came up of, I told them early in the year that they're going to do a practice paper for me to kind of get some, just some honest feedback from me to make sure they're ready for next year. And one thing a student said is, how do you write a math paper? Because they've never done that before. And the first thing I always tell them is, they have to be interested in it. It has to be a topic that they are going to enjoy digging deep into for several months, because in my classes, we always start kind of in the September range with our papers. And then they do little chunks over time. And I know some teachers are different. Some teachers do it all in one bunch. Some people will split it up like I do. So that just depends on who you are. But, if we're going to be spending 3 or more months on a paper, they need to enjoy the topic. They need to be able to dig deep into it. So the person who asked me, he's on the basketball team, I said, well, you love basketball, you play it pretty much every day of your life. Maybe we can find some math, involved in your game, so that you can enjoy doing the research, exploring the math. So what I felt when I would do a math studies project is I would say, okay, so more than likely you're going to do a statistics project. What data are you going to collect? How are you going to collect it? Is it going to be a survey? Are you going to the internet to find the data? What are you going to do? And just always felt like I said, checking off the boxes to make sure that they're getting every step down so they get as many points as possible. And jumping to the math exploration, these kids are going to have to realize that they can't do that anymore. All right. So yes, they still have to accomplish things within the paper to make sure they get a good grade, but it's not all about, did I use 3 math processes? Did I use 2 simple and 1 further math process? Because honestly, we're just looking at either just a certain type of math that you're using from your course, and then digging deep into that one math. Okay, so there's not just 1, 2, or 3 maths that you're doing. So that's where I think it's going to be tough for teachers who have never done the math exploration yet, making that switch. Now again, IB is saying that doing a math studies project will still be adequate for this internal assessment. Again, this is my personal opinion, personal belief. I'm not there yet. I don't buy that yet. So I'm really looking forward. I'm getting more training over this summer, and I can't wait to hear what people are saying about that. And if anybody else has anything that they want to share from their training, I would love to hear it. So please definitely share it with us. So the big things here, and I don't want to spend the entire time kind of just looking at, the criterion, but you have to understand that there are big changes from the math studies to the math exploration. So they had a whole criterion based off of, the information that you collected and how you analyze that data in criterion B. And so they're basically pushing kids into a statistical analysis. But in the new criterion, they can pick any math that they want as long as it's at their level or around their level in the courses. So, and that's the big change, is because I think teachers, and I know I was like this for a time when I was teaching studies, that, it was honestly a little bit easier just to kind of let them collect data, analyze it, and then write a paper about it. That's pretty straightforward. You don't have to go in depth too much. And that's a big thing that they're going to have to change is, they're going to have to dig deeper. They're going to have to explore more than just, we're going to do the chi-square test, or, we're just going to do linear regression. So they have to dig deeper. And it's going to be a rough first year. I'm really, as a moderator, I got 1 more year of grading on the old criteria, and then next year I grade on the new criteria. So I'm really interested to see how that first batch, how that's going to be for these converted studies classes into the applications and interpretations. I'm a little nervous, and I love that, Patty, what you just said. For those people who are new, I think they're going to have a much easier time than those people who have been doing it for 10 to 20 years because it's such a big switch with those papers. And that's what scares me. I sat down with my head of school today, and we talked about it, because he teaches, and one thing I love about my school is both the head of school and the assistant head, they both teach IB classes, and he teaches IB math studies. And I sat down and said it, because he talked to me earlier in the year. He said, I heard that it's just going to be basically the same, and, they could still do the project. And I was open and honest with him, just like I'm being honest with you, and I told him I don't see that. So he's going to training this summer, too, to kind of get his feedback. So it'll be interesting to see what happens that first year. And it's so funny, Patty, that you said that, because, I feel that same way with technology, because we have math teachers, science teachers, just STEM teachers who have been in this business for so long, and they are so used to the technology that they've been using for basically their teaching career. It's very tough for them to make that switch over to maybe something newer or something better or something that can help their class more. And I see that correlation now with this new internal assessment. I'm still struggling, even though I have taught both studies and SL and HL courses. I've done the project. I've had them do the exploration. I still struggle with that switch between, okay, my studies class, that's a pretty easy internal assessment. Oh, but now my SL and HL classes, that's a bit more of a challenge because, again, they have to ask those good questions, ask those, dig deeper questions. So, we just got to wait and see for this first year. I'm nervous, but I'm hoping that the IB community works together to kind of show that, even though the changes are happening, we're going to help one another, because there are so many excellent teachers from in this country, from around the world, who have a really good handle on how they're writing these internal assessments. And it's just I hope that everybody just kind of, helps one another with this. But again, if you have any questions on the criterion, I have these documents for you all, so you can kind of look at yourself, just to kind of look at those comparisons to see, what the changes are, what the wording is. I also have the higher level versions. The only difference between the standard level and the higher level versions basically come at the last stage. So I'll just kind of look at this one. Ooh, where'd it go? So when we're looking at the criterion use of mathematics, that's really the only difference with respect to the standard level and the higher level, is they're a little bit more in depth in criterion E. So you might see some different wording here at the end, just because there's some slightly higher expectations for the higher level student compared to the standard level student. But that's pretty straightforward. So if there are no questions on the criterion, what I'd like to do is go to, this is just an example real quick of, like I said, I'm a moderator, and I get to, I guess I'm using quotes here, lucky enough to grade every May, or every April and May for for the internal assessment. And so I've been looking back at these, because I had 71 of these to do last May, and so I was regrading them, in my, hours and hours of spare time that I have, just to kind of compare them to the new criterion. And you can kind of see that my grade I gave this was a 7 on the studies side of things. So I'll show you one kind of low one kind of high one. And this person, they lacked the clarity with respect to their introduction. And it was a very simple project. They really just talked about, they did a bar graph, there wasn't much math to it. So that's kind of the reason they didn't explain their charts here, or how they collected the data. So they got a really low score of 7. And you'll see that this is really the only math. They did the mean and a bar chart. That's really not much going on there. And then they threw in graphs that weren't even mentioned in the plan here, and then they jump right to the conclusion. Yeah. So this wasn't a very, very sound paper. And so I regraded it with the new criterion, and what I've been seeing with all these papers I've gone back to regrade is that they are not basically going in depth with their topics. They are all just kind of skimming the surface. So they're really just trying to do the bare minimum to get as many points as they can. So a project like this, there were a few simple processes. So there is no way they can go higher than a 2, really, in the old criterion. So just kind of thinking about that with respect to the new criterion, when they're only doing a bar graph, if they're only doing finding the average, finding the mean, or doing a line graph, a frequency graph like this is, where do we draw the line to criterion E with respect to mathematics? So if they're in the applications and interpretations, a math exploration cannot skim the surface. All right, so a math exploration, yes, you're going to be doing math, but you're trying to do some in-depth math work, not just showing a graph, not just showing the mean, okay? And that's the problem I think teachers are going to have jumping to the math exploration, is because the studies project, in my eyes, is more of a let's just show the math work and explain the results. Whereas the math exploration is, okay, I like this topic, let's dig into the math behind this topic and see where did that math come from? How can I use that math? Where else can it be used? So you're going at it in many different directions other than just saying, here's the average of this data, okay? Or here is the graph of this data, where that can check off all the boxes for the studies project, okay? But for a math exploration, no, that's not going to cut it. So again, I hope I'm not being a downer with respect to this webinar. I'm just kind of sharing how I feel with respect to grading this. So another one I'd like to kind of show you, one that's a slightly better one here. So here, this person did, in my estimation, one of the better jobs that I had seen. Very well explained in the beginning, introduction, okay? Everything looks good. There were no surprises, no shocks. So anything that they used with respect to mathematics or data collection, that was all explained, okay? And it was all used, and everything was nice, neat, plenty of data. All that looked great. But now here's the situation. They did all this math for the data they collected, but what I think is one of the most important parts of the math exploration is discussing it, bringing up questions that came from this math process that you use. So that's, again, where I'm having difficulty going from, okay, the math studies project to the math exploration, is how are the students going to discuss, the math that they're using, all right, instead of just showing the math that they're using, because they have to do it in a way that, yes, the teacher has to understand it, but they have to do it as if they were talking to their fellow students, their peers, and their peers have to understand it also. So they can't get away with just skimming the surface and not going in depth. But then when they go in depth, they have to do it in a way that it's easily understandable to someone who honestly has never seen their paper before. So there's kind of a balancing act that they have to do. And again, I'm very interested to see what happens because, like I said, this paper, fantastic. I thought they did a great job to get almost a 20 on it. But again, if I graded it on the new criterion, I honestly would only give it in that 15, maybe 16 mark because of the depth of what they were talking about. So if you have the opportunity this summer, take some of your papers and start grading them and see the comparison between the two because I think it'll open your eyes a bit to where we are headed. And just a few things about the papers that if you know them, great. If not, I'd just like to share. When I was going through all the requirements, we're looking at papers that basically deal with 12 to 20 pages. And, that might be a stretch for a lot of our study students. Out of those 71 papers that I graded, a lot of them were under 6 pages. And, if we're following the guidelines set forth by IB, that's a big jump. going from 5 or 6 pages to 12 to 20 pages. Now, of course, I've graded papers that had 20 to 30 pages in them, which is kind of bad on the opposite end of things. But that's another thing where I'm a little scared for. You know, if you have students who struggle to get 5 pages, you know, if IB is asking for 12 pages, how are you going to fill in that gap? Because the students really have to think about 12 pages of math. Kind of crazy. What are you supposed to be doing as a teacher with respect to getting these students ready? Well, IB recommends 10 to 15 hours, you know, of class time to work with the math exploration. But what that means is you can spend class time explaining, you know, what the guidelines, what's going on. You can have them doing research in your class, exploring topics, and then exploring the math behind those topics. You can give them guidance, which I love, you know, because it's not just here's your topic, go write a 12-page paper. You're allowed to, you know, give guidance to them. Now, you can't, you know, go through 20 rough drafts with them to do that, but, you know, you can guide them and kind of give them feedback, you know, especially early on when it's most important during the process. So just kind of knowing those things, you know, just kind of going along with that. You know, we're supposed to be pushing the boundaries of technology. So we want to encourage them to use, you know, the technology that's available to them. And that's where I see TI is so beneficial because, you know, they can do so much on the handheld that it could make their paper that much easier because all that math stuff can be done on their handheld and then transferred over to the paper. And there's a couple different ways that you can do some of that stuff, and I'd like to share that with you just to kind of give you an idea. I pulled up the Nspire, and I'm going to show you a little bit with the 84. I'll show you a little bit with the Nspire just to kind of give you an idea of what I do with my students. Now, I'm lucky enough to use the Nspire in my classroom. So if you are Nspire users, and you have either your students buy them or you have classroom sets, you have software available to you that comes with the calculator. So if your student is buying their own calculator and Nspire, then they get this computer software that you see on my screen. They get that software, all right? And they can do all of their work and transfer it right to a document because, you know, if I wanted to, you know, I was just looking at some different, where is it? It's that one. So I was just looking at some sample IAs from the past, and if I wanted to do this, you know, yes, there are apps and, you know, free things that you can find on the internet, but the students can do this in color and transfer it over to their document from their handheld software. Now, they can do this one of two ways. If they have the software, you know, it's as easy as, you know, just typing in, you know, that or collecting data and transferring over. So if you are using the computer software, my first recommendation, you have the ability to open 2 types of documents. When I go to File, I can open a document that's a handheld version. So what that gives you is it gives you the calculator screen on your computer. I don't recommend that one if we're going to use this for our paper because honestly, I don't want to see this right here on my computer or on my paper. Okay, I just want to see the graph. And so if you choose, when you go up to File, and if you choose computer page size, it takes away this border up at the top. So it's not in your picture. I just think that's a little cleaner, a little bit nicer, a little bit neater. So if I had this graph and I wanted to transfer it over, it's very simple from the computer. There's a little camera up here, okay? And again, this comes with the calculator. If you or your students buy it, this software comes with it. If I click on the camera, I can just capture the page. All right, little view it pops up here. I click it, and there's my picture. Okay, and I can just copy it. And I pulled up a Word document, so I can go to a blank document and just paste it in here. So there's my picture, nice and neat, and I can change the size to fit my spacing, very nice and easy. Okay, or if you are a Google user, okay, you can do the same thing. So I copied it there. I'm going to go to my Google. I want to open the doc, and I can just paste it in there. There it is. Okay, so now I have it in my Google Doc too. So very easy to create this stuff on the handheld software. Now, what if you don't have the computer software? Okay, so all you would need to do, okay, is basically, and this is my recommendation, if you don't have the computer software, if your students don't have the computer software for some unknown reason, go to the internet, go to, where is it? Hello. I just had it here. There it is. Okay. So go to the education.ti.com, okay, and what you'll notice up here where it says downloads, all right, you can download guidebooks, yes. You can download apps, updates for the 84, the Nspire, software and operating system updates. Over here, 90-day trial software, okay? Your students can get 90 free days of the Nspire software if they wanted to, okay, which I think is pretty cool. So if you're spending a couple months on this paper, this project, this exploration, they can download the software, you know, and use it for that 2 months, okay, free of charge, no problem. And it just requires them to select O. If I want to select the software, just make sure that the students say that they are a student, okay, and then they would just fill in their information. Pretty easy to do. So that's very nice. And what they can do is if they just have the handheld, all they have to do is connect the handheld to the computer, do any of their work on their handheld, and then transfer it over quickly and very easily onto their computer. So it's a very, very, very simple process. So what if you have the 84? Okay. Can you take screenshots? Well, if you're a teacher, I'm hoping that you have the SmartView, the emulator software, okay? Because before I got into the Nspires, this is what I used, all right? And if my students ever needed it, I would let them send their stuff to my screen, and then we would just copy and paste it. So I can take a picture, all right? Up here, there's a little camera, all right? Again, I got another picture here. I can copy it. I can go to my Google Doc, and I could put it right below this one. Paste it right there. So I got that. So you can do that with your 84. Okay, so both the Nspire and the 84 can be done that way. All right, what else can we do with these calculators? One thing that I love doing, and I'll go forward to, I love analyzing pictures on my graph. How do I get pictures to show up on my graph? Well, if you have the software, again, very easy. You have to just go to Insert, and then down here you can insert an image. And you can just kind of pick from whatever your stash of images. At the start of the year, I always have my students take pictures of what they think math is in the real world, and then they send them to me, and I just keep a collection, you know, to use. And if I just select one of these, there's my picture. This was me, my family at Epcot. If you've ever been, these are the kind of dancing fountains. They kind of shoot from one spot to the next. And if you notice, it forms a nice little parabola. So then I can kind of start doing some, you know, negative x squared. Do enter, so graph it. And then we can do some transformations just to kind of find the equation that best fits that. Okay, and so there I found that that's my curve of best fit for that. and we can discuss, about that parabola and how it shoots from that hole, goes that path to that hole. And students can analyze this for one of their math papers, their project, their exploration. And then all I have to do then is take a picture, go down here to the view it, and then I can cut and paste it into my document. And it's that simple. All right. And then adjust the size whatever I need. So these are little things that your students can be doing with the TI software. Now, can the 84 do that? It can. It's not as pretty as the Nspire, but with the new CE software, you can actually put pictures on the screen. And you don't have to memorize this procedure. I actually just kind of went through this because I'm mainly an Nspire user. I had to kind of freshen up on this. But I can actually, if I hit second program, I can go to my background and turn on a background to my graph. So I do have to go get an image, though. So I'm going to go to VARs, and then you'll notice down at number 4 it says picture and background. And then I'm going to go to background. And here, and this is the, I didn't get the clearest image of my fountain that I wanted, but you'll notice here is the picture of my fountain. It's a little pixelated, so I have to work with the image converter, but you do have the ability to put pictures on the 84 also. So if you have the 84, if you have the Nspire, you can do that for both of them. So those are just a few things that you can do. Something else I like, when I grade the, thank you, Ruth. Ruth is my 84 expert. Thank you very much. So one thing that I see over and over and over again, which just drives me crazy, is, when students, turn in, when I grade the IB papers in April and May, I get so many comparisons to GPA. So what I did, as an example, I took GPA and compared it to sleep hours. So I collected some data, just 10 pieces of GPA and sleep hours, and then I decided to graph it. So what the students can do with, and you can do this on the 84, you can do this on the Nspire, is once we click on, GPA can be our X's and sleep hours can be our Y's, we can kind of try to talk about this. So this is a perfect example of, with this data, you'll see it scattered all over the place. So there's no line of best fits, curve of best fits. Maybe we can get creative. I don't know. But what the students can now do with this, compared to what they used to do with the studies project, they can now discuss these results rather than just find an R value, or rather just trying to explain the correlation. They can now discuss, why are the sleep hours and GPA not correlated? Why are they scattered all over the place? Why did some people who got high GPAs get less sleep and others who got high GPAs got more sleep? They can start talking about that, and that's what the math exploration is about, is going deeper into this material. Rather than just finding a line of best fit and showing the steps of finding the line of best fit. I know in your interpretation of results you had to talk about that, but, most of the papers, and I'm just being honest, most of the papers I grade, students scratch the surface. They really don't get into the depths that they need to, and that's where the exploration is going to is heading. So that's where you get your kids talking about the results that you see here, not about finding a line of best fits, but talk about these data points more than anything. And then what math can we perform on this, and why did you choose that math? All right, students say, I'm going to do the mean, I'm going to find the median, I'm going to find the mode, I'm going to do the R value, I'm going to find the line of best fit, I'm going to do the chi-square test. They're doing 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 processes, but they can't really explain why they use them all. And that's a big thing with the exploration is you might be doing 1 or 2 math processes. That's about it. But you're digging deep in those math processes. You're not just going to be finding the average. Okay, you're picking a math topic that you cover in your class, either during your class or in the future of your class, and you're really kind of buckling down and kind of digging into those topics. So that is going to be a tough thing for students to do, and it's going to take a lot of work. And like I said, I'm nervous, I'm excited, a lot of things happening there. But if you can get your students to ask those tough questions about the math, to kind of push them in the direction, and this is where you have to help as teachers, because there are some teachers I know that give the internal assessment and then they never talk to the students about it, which I don't understand, okay? But, what you really have to do is you have to be a guide through this process, all right? If they are going to do a data collection project, it has to be more than just showing the steps to find the correlation coefficient or the coefficient of determination. It has to be more than that. Why would you choose to do that? Okay, is there anything better out there that you can choose? All right, you have to have the students ask those tough questions. All right, because if not, then I really believe this, that they're going to get downgraded with the new criteria. They really have to kind of go deeper, and it's going to be tough for us all. It really is. So just one last little thing before I hand it back over to Ruth, because I've just scratched the surface. What we're trying to do here with TI, and I'm going to just show you what we are trying to accomplish, is if you go to activities or if you go to resources, either one, resources, you'll see it there, IB resources. Activities, you'll see IB resources. Okay, both of them lead you to this page. And what we are doing is, as our first couple phases of this, we are taking current activities that are available for you on the TI website that closely relate to topics covered in IB Maths. And we put them under the 2 categories of analysis and approaches, applications and interpretations. So if you browse, lots of activities going on. Okay, you can pick the topic, the 5 topics. You can pick the technology. Okay, you can go through all these. And if you just pick one, I'll just pick this one. It kind of gives you, the overview of the activity. It gives you the zip file with all the documents. So it has the PDFs, the Word docs, and then it also has a TNS file or an 84 file if it's an 84 activity. But something else that's here is an IB question. I've been writing IB questions now. We have 50 available, which is awesome. I love it, I love it, I love it. So we have 50 total questions available for you to use. Again, you do what you want with them, all right? What I did is basically I just, wrote this question for certain topics. Now we got 50, almost 50 different topics for questions. It has the question, it has the mark scheme, and honestly, if you like this question, use it. If you like it and want to change it and make it your own, do it. Just, kind of make your students better. That's what we're trying to do here. So we have 50 total questions now that are there for you, which I'm very excited about. And then we also have, if I go back to the main page here, we have between 50 and 75 activities for you to choose from, okay? So we have a lot going on, and that's our first couple phases. Our next phase after this one is we are going to be writing specific IB activities. So the first couple phases were just to kind of use what we already had, but now we're going to actually write new ones, which I'm very excited about. But then each time we hand out another 25 activities, we're also handing out another 25 IB questions. So the next step, we're going to get 75, and then the one after that, we're going to get up to 100. So my goal is to get up to 100 by summer. So we'll have 100 questions in place for you to use for next year's, rollout of the new exam. In addition to that, on this site, we also have the live webinars. So this is where you would register for these wonderful, I hope, IB webinars that you are listening to. But we also keep them recorded, all right, on demand. So when you click on the demand, okay, you'll notice that these are where they're all listed. We already have the, are you ready for the math changes? Topic 1, Topic 2, Topic 3, okay, and then we'll post this one up very soon. But you should notice that there are some other IB webinars. Now, we have IB teachers from around the world who work with TI, and they've already done some IB webinars, and so they're up here too. So you can actually kind of go through those, because even though they're from Math Studies or Math SL, there's still some good things there to listen to that could help you out. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that before we kind of left here today. Again, we just scratched the surface today with the math exploration. My hope is I gave you a little bit of knowledge. Those criterion documents that I created are there. We got a link. I don't know, Ruth, do you have that link to share? Thank you so much.
That's a different link, but I do have the link you're asking about, yes.
Okay, thank you. So use those documents. If you ever have any questions, comments, or anything, please feel free to email me at that email address. I'll be more than happy to chat with you, send you stuff that I have. I have tons and tons and tons of resources that if you want to borrow, use, whatever, do whatever you want with, I'm more than happy to share. We're in this together, and we're going to go through these changes together and hopefully kind of help one another out. But we just have a few minutes left. I've been talking now for, over 50 minutes, and I'm going to hand it back over to Ruth to finish things off. So thank you, everybody, so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Daniel. As we wrap up this evening, I want to be sure and announce the winner of the complimentary registration. This was a random drawing for the participants that were actually present tonight, not the any of them that might have pre-registered, but participants present. And tonight's winner, congratulations, Victoria.
Yay, Victoria.
Tomorrow or the next day, you will be receiving an email with a link to our certificate of attendance for tonight, and you will receive a link to the documents that Daniel shared. So if you missed those links in the chat window, they will come to you in an email. Daniel put in his email, his contact info. We put in a link to the documents. We put in a link to the WebEx, the webinars on demand, and we put in a link to the certificate. Again, congratulations to Victoria, and thank you to everybody who attended tonight. Nice engagement with some of the chat comments, and thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you. And if anybody does have the ability to go to the T-Cube conference in Dallas this year, I do have 2 IB sessions, one on the Saturday and one on the Sunday of the conference. So please, if you can make it, come on down and be sure to find me, okay? We'll talk there. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks again. Thanks for joining us tonight. We will be back here for the next event, the next IB webinar on January 30th.